morning, everyone. So this morning we had the great privilege of hearing from two very important guests. We have Major Weaver and her husband, Command Sergeant Major Weaver. Major Weaver comes from Lafayette, Louisiana, where she enlisted in the Reserve's Delayed Entry Program in 1993. She later enlisted into active duty and commissioned as an officer in 2005. After a very successful career, she retired in 2017 at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Her husband, Command Sergeant Major Weaver, comes from Ashburn, Georgia. After his completion of basic training in AIT, he also went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, into the 82nd Airborne Division. Some of his positions included being the G6 Sergeant Major for the 1st Armored Division, as well as the 82nd Airborne. Together they have seen and accomplished so much in their careers, and if you listen, I'm sure they can teach you even more. So go ahead and give a round of applause for Major Weaver and her husband, Command Sergeant Major Weaver.
I respect what you said. But remember that these men have lands and castles. It's much to risk.
And the common man that bleeds on the battlefield, does he risk less?
No. But from top to bottom, this country has got no sense of itself. Its nobles share allegiance with England. Its clans war with each other, right? If you make enemies on both sides of the border, you'll end up dead.
We all end up dead. It's just a question of how and why.
I'm not a coward. I want what you want, but we need the nobles.
We need them.
Aye.
Nobles. Now tell me, what does that mean to be noble? Your title gives you claim to the throne of our country. But men don't follow titles. They follow courage. Now our people know you. Noble and common, they respect you. And if you would just lead them to freedom, they'd follow you. And so would I.
Research shows nostalgia can help.
All right, that commercial there wasn't for you. Hey, good morning. I'm Command Sergeant Major Weaver, retired United States Army, 25 X-ray. I have served in many leadership positions, as you have heard, and some of you may have seen me around here off and on, and then I just did the Martin Luther King Day speech. Hey, today we're here to talk to you about what young leaders need to know as they enter the workforce. So what we talk about today doesn't matter if you're going in the military or what branch you're going in the military or if you're going into civilian life. So whatever you're going to do, you should be able to apply these principles to anything. Anything. Everything you see on the left is what we formulated in our mind, minus the one or two that we'll talk about up here ourselves that are not on the slide. Everything on the right, you should be already receiving it within your military science class here at the Georgia Military College. Or you may have seen it somewhere else. How many prior service I have in here? I know most likely you have seen it. No matter what your rank is, if you've been to PLDC, back in my days when it was PLDC, now BLC, right? You probably have saw it. So, at this point, I want you to take out your pen and paper, right? As we speak, I want you to write down any question that you have, because at the end, we will take question and we will give an answer to the best of our knowledge. Now, you need to take full advantage of what you have today. You have a Command Sergeant Major with 27 plus years in the military, in the Army. And you have a major that spent time all the way to Staff Sergeant as enlisted, and then transferred over, like most of you will be doing, right? And became a lieutenant or officer and made it to the rank of major in 2 different fields, supply and med service. Again, I spent my whole career as a communicator, but I really never served in the communication world. until I was a senior non-commissioned officer. First sergeant was the first time I ever served in signal. The rest of the time I served in combat arms operations. So take full advantage. Now, going to the video. My wife will talk about the video, or Major Weaver will talk about the video, right? But you should already have some questions off of that. Why did we play that? What was the significance of that video when it comes to that title at the top? It was a lot of things I pulled from it. So you should have been able to pull some of the same things from it. Now, one of the things, I'm going to go ahead and say it before we even go through the left side, that's not on the slide that you need to understand is take ownership. You need to be able to take ownership of whatever you do. Have that drive and that tenacity throughout your endeavors, but take ownership. For those of you that are going to be leaders in the military, that is a key point. The next thing I'm going to say is building teams. No matter what you do, you should be building a team. If it's in the civilian world, you go into an organization, you should be building a team. If you're in the military, it is a must, because teamwork wins. Teamwork makes your organization accomplish the mission and the intent of your commander. So, looking at the first top bullet, I say conduct research on your organization. When I'm looking at going into an organization, why would I conduct research? Why would I want to know about the organization that I'm going to, even if it's McDonald's, Walmart, or it's the 82nd Airborne Division, 82nd MP Company, DeVarty, or his 1st Armored Division? Why would I conduct research? The reason is I want to know what they're doing, what their mission is. What is my fit into that organization, no matter what my MOS or my job set is or my skill level. As young leaders, when you go into that organization, you're still learning. You don't know everything. Command Sergeant Major Weaver don't know everything. When I had a brigade formation with all my troops over in Korea, I had privates, I had PFCs. Guess what? They taught me something. I never thought in my 27 plus years that I knew everything. I came in the military at 25 years old. I already had experienced life. But once I got there, I knew that I can still learn something. So continue to learn. That's the reason I conduct research on an organization that I was headed to. I'm conducting research on GMC right now, so I can learn what goes on at GMC. So that's bullet 1. Know your roles and responsibilities. Hey, that's simple. You got to know your roles and your responsibilities, especially as young leaders. You're going to mess around and go to an organization and you're going to fall in on a platoon, most of you that are going Army. Some of you may even fall into sections because it's different for branches. I was just the J6 Sergeant Major, my last unit for NORAD and NORCOM, right? So I had Army, Air Force, Marines, Canadians, Coast Guard, and some Navy, right? So knowing my role and my responsibility was a little bit different once I went to that organization. And the reason was because I had been tactical most of my career. I served as a Joint Sergeant Major once over in Iraq, in Baghdad, where I had Australians and a few others. But once I went to NORAD and NORCOM, my roles and responsibilities as a sergeant major was a little different because I had different branches. So I'm telling you, once you go into an organization as a young leader, make sure you understand your roles and responsibilities. And the roles and responsibilities of that non-commissioned officer, if you're going to be an officer, right? Because I also know some sergeant majors that came out of GMC that made it to command sergeant major, and they went through the same program that y'all did. Continue to learn and grow, which I already touched a little bit on that. Again, you never know everything. So continue to learn and grow, and I guarantee you will be set up for success. If you start being an individual, right, and think you know everything, you're going to head down a road, there's no return. It's going to be a one-way street. All right. Leave yourself room to always learn and grow and accept responsibility that I said at first, right? Accept that. Accept responsibility for what you're doing. The most important thing to me as a sergeant major was I always tried to promote an environment where everybody can grow, because we're building future leaders. And that's the reason I'm standing up here today, right? I done done my time in my mind, but I must continue to do things to help build leaders in the next generation, which y'all are. I want you to go out there to be the best you can be. That's the only way you can be, right? Be the best that you can be. That's the only way we're going to continue to be the best military in the world, is create and grow great leaders. Not just good leaders, great leaders. So when you go in that organization, when I was a brigade sergeant major in Korea, I noticed that my E4s and my E3s were, got to be E3, I'm going to make E4, right? Once I make E4, I'm going to be E5. And to be an E5, that putting stripes on me. So I was a corporal. So, I got my stripes as a corporal. Once I received that rank, it was more responsibility. I had things now that I had to do that I didn't do as a PFC, didn't do as a specialist. So in Korea, I built a course to send my guys and gals through, my soldiers, to make sure they understood what the transition was. And last night at dinner, we talked a little bit about that transition. When I get promoted, how should I be? All right? It is a transition. So get to know your soldiers, or airmen, or CB, whatever we're going to call them, right? Get to know your people. If you go into an organization that's not military, still do the same thing. All these principles apply. Know your people. Know your organization. Know your leaders. Why? Let's go to that slide over to the left. You're right. All right? It's about the intent of the commander. Being able to carry your leadership intent out. That's what I mean by know your subordinates and know your leadership, or know your leaders. Share your ideas and feedback. One of the most important things I did learn as a leader was, again, going back to I don't know everything. Now I want to do it this way. Oh, hold on. I think we need to do it better this way. We'll get less people injured, less people killed. That's giving back feedback from somebody else and then accepting that feedback and then changing the course of how we're going to do things. That can, again, as an example you can use no matter what you're doing. Build relationships with and outside of your organization. Let me tell you, I call it affecting your environment. I spent 15 years in the 82nd Airborne Division prior to going to Fort Bliss, Texas, which was a total change from being at Bragg, which is now Fort Liberty, I think, right? When I went out there, I heard the chatter. He bringing this Fort Bragg stuff to Fort Bliss, right? And you're going to hear it as you go through your career about certain people. But I'm going to tell you, changing your environment, right, is one of the most powerful tools you can have in your toolbox. Your environment can be your section. Your environment can be your team. Your environment can be your whole company, your platoon, in most of your cases once you leave here. Well, once you get commissioned and then go on to be a lieutenant in the active duty or National Guard or Coast Guard, whatever you're going to be, right? It don't matter. Affecting your environment does, though. I'm going to tell you, you can change lives. And that was one of the greatest things that I enjoyed throughout my career, was being able to help change lives. Lead by example. If I don't lead by example, I got issues. Because every one of you right now are judging me. You are. I know you are. I've been there, done that. I sat in your seat. You're watching. You're picking every little thing I do. So I must set the example. Because one day I want one of you to say, I want to be like that. I want to be like him. I did that when I went to basic training. Them drill sergeants came in and I told them, I was around the same age they were anyway. I'll say, I want to be just like that. I want to go to that school that he went to. I want to go to that school that drill sergeant went to. I want to be, my mannerism to be like that drill sergeant. But guess what? I didn't change who I was and where I come from. But I adapted. So set the example no matter what you do. Because that will be one of the most important things you'll ever do as a leader. Because you're going to remember. And that person that's watching you is going to remember how you were. You're going to walk off and think you was all this and that. But that judgment is going to come back at you. So that's just my quick spiel. I know some of you, again, have seen me and heard me around before. Now I'm going to give it to my wife, the major, right, who have had the experience that most of you will have as an officer. And then she will get up here and make sure you pay attention. Because at the end, those questions that you're going to ask that we're going to try to answer to the best of our ability, it's going to be something that somebody back in the back there going to remember. Somebody over on your left or right going to remember.
I don't get up till what, 10, 11 o'clock? Anyway, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to come up here, myself and my husband, to speak to you about what young leaders need to do when they're entering the workforce. When my husband and I first got asked, you know, hey, we would like for y'all to come down and speak to the, speak to the future leaders of America, whatever you do, whatever branch of service you're going into. I started thinking, I started putting my officer cap. I started thinking way outside the box, and my husband was like, hey, calm down, calm down. These are college kids. You can't talk way up here. You got to talk where they can understand you. I did that because I got excited, because leadership is important. It's the basis of who we are. It's the basis of how we make it not only as individuals, but as organizations. It determines whether you succeed or whether you fail. Leadership to me is something that's utmost and personal because it's not about saying things. It's about your actions. It's about who you are personally, internally, and externally. And it's how you affect your environment, how you affect the people, how you affect changes, how you affect outcomes. So we played this video, Braveheart. It's way before your time. But we played it, and one key note that I picked out of that is that William Wallace, who was a great leader himself, talking to Robert Bruce, right? He said that people don't follow titles, right? People do not follow titles. When you leave Georgia Military College, you'll have a skill set. You'll have the knowledge of what a leader should be, know, and do. But that doesn't make you a leader. What makes you a leader is your character. What builds you? Do you have values? Your presence. Do you look at yourself in the mirror? Make sure that, you're squared away. Make sure, you're fit to fight. Make sure that you exude a presence and a delivery about yourself to go out there to inspire and motivate others to want to follow you. Do you have the intellect? I'll say this kind of a lot, are you invested in yourself, in your craft, learning your job, learning others? That stuff about knowing your organization, knowing your subordinates, knowing your leaders, that's all about intellect, right? That's all about building intel to make you a better leader, right? And it's how you lead others. Are you building the team? Are you building trust? It's how you develop others to go out there and lead. Because guess what? You're going to continue to move up if you do good as leaders, or you can potentially move down, right? And with all of that, it's taking those risks. Leadership is about risk. Again, you're not going to know everything. Part of learning, part of leadership is failing, because that's how we learn, right? That's how we grow. So never be afraid to take risks, because that only makes you better leaders. I had a whole speech plan, but like I said, my husband got up here. He went through his old Sergeant Major spiel, just preaching out to you guys. But one thing that you should take away, like I said, leadership does not come from titles. It's what you do. It's what you represent. It's not what you do as young leaders in the workforce. It's more so how you do it. How do you serve others to willingly want to follow you, like as you saw in the film, to achieve a goal, whatever that may be? That's what you need to leave here today thinking. How can I best serve others to achieve the goal? And that's through all the things we talk about right here, having those leadership attributes and competencies to ensure success. I don't have anything else. I told my husband I was going to keep it short and simple. So I'll leave the floor open now if y'all have any questions, comments, or concerns. Go ahead.
Hey, now going back to the movie, who all seen Braveheart? Most of you, right? All right, so one of his main things not only was about leadership, William Wallace and the Bruce, right? But it was about building a team. The only way they know that they can win was put everybody together to fight the foe. So building a team. Again, no matter what you do, you going into something, you need to build a team and affect your environment. Affect your environment. That's the only way, no matter what you do. All right, so we are looking forward to all the good questions, right? Because as we do these questions, again, the people around you are going to learn something. And hopefully y'all teach us something, okay? All right, let's get started. And if you're going to ask it for me, you just say Sergeant Major. If you're going to ask it for my wife, just say Major. All right?
Yes, Command Sergeant Major. Good morning, Command Sergeant Major.
Good morning.
My name is Cadet Person. I'm a ECP cadet from Macon, Georgia. My question to you is, can you always determine if the judgment is positive or negative? And if so, how?
So, positive outcome and negative outcome of a situation. That's basically what you're saying, right? So if you got a mission or you got something that you're doing, how do I judge the positiveness of it and the negativeness of it, right? Whether it's going to be positive or negative. What? All right, get me straight.
In the middle of your speech, Command Sergeant Major, you stated how we were judging you.
Oh.
And I'm asking, how do you know if we're looking for positive aspects as far as how you talk to us, how you make eye contact, how you point out certain things, or if it's negative, as in, oh, he didn't say this or he didn't do this? How do you determine that if that judgment is positive or negative?
Yeah, excitement. Excitement, right? That's how I know it's positive. So last night we did what the guys and the female that we sat with last night for dinner? Raise your hand, right? Right after we finished dinner and we was walking out, how I was able to judge was it a great session or not was we had two. One came up and shook my hand after we left, and one went over to my wife and talked for about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes. That let me know that we had a positive impact last night. Today, I'm going to judge it this morning. Once we come off this stage, do we pique your interest? That means how many of you are going to come and ask me a question? I was here doing a speech. I think it was Mr. Plum. I think it was the Navy. And I stood right here after talking to him. And there was two cadets that came down and talked to me, right? They both was prior service members, both prior enlisted. And they came right here and talked to me, and I was just a guest that day. Positive. That's how I judge it. Now, if we just get up, everybody just roll out because they tired and want to go run off and go do what they got to do, we didn't have an impact. So then, how do we re-engage that? Or were y'all worth engaging? You see? I hope I answered your question, Killer.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, Sergeant Major. My name is Autumn Herndon, and I'm an early commissioning program cadet. I was wondering, I'm sure you've seen plenty of young second lieutenants out and about. What mistake do you see them make the most, and how do you suggest that they fix that so we don't repeat?
Good question, because I was one of those young lieutenants going out there. I was also young once. Can you believe that? Yeah, I was a 17-year-old, fresh out of high school. I knew everything. I was going to change the world, right? Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right, so mistakes. Like I said, what is the biggest mistake? It's not asking questions, not learning, not growing, not being a team player. That's some of the biggest mistakes you can make as young leaders. How do you fix that? Continue is these bullets points that we put up there. No, do your homework. You know, invest in yourself, invest in your craft, what you're gonna do, invest in your people. You know, and work and build others alongside of you. You could be the best leader. I think you're the best leader out there. Have the best ideas. Oh, I got this plan. E equals MC squared, right? I'm going to change the world. But how are you going to do that if you don't have anybody to execute? How are you going to do that? That's when we talk about what do young leaders need when they're in the workforce? Because you're going to be working with a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds, have a lot of different skill sets. And again, you're going to go in there as a young lieutenant, and they're going to tell you, hey, lieutenant, I need you to do this. And you're going to sit there. And you're going to want to do the best thing for God and country, right? But because of pride and ego, you're not going to ask questions. You're not going to get clarification. That's what you're going to go out there blind.
You're going to think you know. You're going to think you know everything as a lieutenant. That's the problem. As a sergeant major, or as an E7, E6, and those new lieutenants came in, that's one of the issues that I saw. Go back to, just like Major Weaver said, go back to the bullets and be receptive of what you're getting. And remember, you are falling in an organization that has people with what? Experience.
Use that.
Experience. You're going to have a sergeant first class right alongside you that probably got 20 years in the Army. Use them to your advantage, but still lead. Still lead. Don't sit there and put everything on them. Lead. All right?
Did we answer your question? Because you're going to make a mistake. I'm just telling you.
Everybody do.
You're going to make a mistake. That's what lieutenants are used for, making mistakes, right? But guess what? If you learn from those mistakes, you become better.
Morning, ma'am. Good morning, Sergeant Major. My name is Graham Copeland. I'm a Coast Guard Academy scholar, and I was looking at the graphic behind you, and I think there's a lot of really good points on there. In the competencies area, under leadership or leads, it has communicates intent in bold, and I was just hoping you could elaborate on, as a young leader, when it's appropriate to communicate intent and how a young leader should go about doing that.
So I'll start off
Yep.
with that. So as
Let the officer answer that.
so as a young leader, right? Young lieutenant going into, you know, like I said, any branch of service you decide to go into, right? You're not in charge. You might think you're in charge, but you're not in charge. There's going to be somebody over you, right? That intent is going to be your leadership's intent, that organization's intent. That's why the first bullet on there was get to know your organization you're going into, right? So you can know their mission statement, their vision. How do I or how do you fit into that unit? How can you be most effective? So that is highlighted because you say communicates intent. When you come to your unit, your commanders, your leadership is going to bring you in a little room and they're going to give you a counseling and they're going to tell you what their intent is. Hey, Lieutenant. Hey, you know, I don't know what it's on the civilian side. Like I said, I've been in the military since I was 17, so I'm still learning the civilian aspect. They're going to tell you their intent. And they're going to leave it up to you to be creative, be innovative, to lead their team, right? To execute their intent. That's what you're going to be judged, assessed on, and that's how you move up in rank, right? What can you do, how you do it, to meet that commander's intent? Now, as a young leader, after you get that nice briefing, he tells you your intent, now you got to go out to your platoon, right? Your organization, and you got to communicate that intent. And you say, well, how do I do that? Again, it's about learning. It's that intellectual stuff. How much time are you investing into your craft? Learning about your job, learning about your subordinates, learning about just people. As a company commander, one of the most rewarding feats that I had was when I was doing my change of command, when the incoming commander. And we would go around, doing our change of command inventories. And I had almost 300 soldiers because I had 2 companies at the time. I would talk to all my soldiers. They'd say, hey, ma'am, hey. And I would say, hey, how's your mom doing? How's how's it going in school? Hey, how's the, he's like, how do you know all this stuff? How do you know each and every individual? Because it's my job. You don't have to know everything about everybody, but you have to, when you talk about building that team, you got to know what the strengths and capabilities of each and every one of the personnel in your organization brings to that, right? Because you got to know how to set them. How can you be effective? Well, I know you can shoot 3-pointers real well. You're talking about team sports. I know he's a 3-point shot, right? So when it comes to the clutch, guess who I'm going to look at? The person that can shoot the three-point shot, right? It's with anything. Looking at your organization, you have to get to know the people. You have to get to know their strengths and weaknesses. You have to take them from being, develop their strengths and weaknesses so they can be where you're at, so you can move on. Because if you don't develop your team, guess what? You can't move on. They're going to still need you to do that same exact job that you do because you haven't developed people underneath you so that you can move on. So communicating intent is learning your job, learning your people. And like I said, you'll be successful. Did I answer that? There's so many ways I can go with this and I can get in, but
leadership philosophy is another good thing too. So when we go into an organization new, we try to throw out a leadership philosophy to our team or our crew or company, brigade, battalion, no matter what size it is. Give them your philosophy, which really is giving them your intent, what you expect of them. Always let them know what you expect of them, and that way they'll know what they expect from you. All right?
How can you do a job if you don't know what to do?
Yeah. You can go ahead.
Hello, I'm Cadet Rojas. I'm a United States Naval Academy scholar, and my question was for Major Weaver. As an officer, how long did you have to follow until you were ready to lead, and how did you know that you were ready for this position of leadership yourself?
I'm still following. It never stops. You have to be a follower first to be a leader. And again, like I said, I'm still following. Now, where I understood that I wanted to become more responsible for others, it became natural. Once I got into my organization, like I said, I started off this at 17. I didn't know anything about the military. I just knew I wanted to get away from home. I wanted a break. I wanted a change of scenery, right? So as I became in the organization, I explained to some of the cadets last night. I saw the drill sergeants come up. They had the big brown round hats. They were yelling at people, and they had a command presence about themselves. And I said, I want to be like that, like my husband pointed out earlier. I wanted to be like that. I didn't know it had anything to do with leadership. I just know I wanted their aura, their effectiveness of making people do what they wanted them to do. inspiring, motivating. Yeah, they were hollering, they were screaming and barking out orders, but at the same time, they were building you to be leaders, to be followers. When I saw that, I said I wanted to lead. I wanted to affect change. I wanted to be able to bring people, I wanted to be surrounded by people that I know that, you know, me becoming a better person so I can go out to make other people better. Because that's the jobs of drill sergeants, right? To produce leaders, right? To give you that inspiration, that motivation to become better, to put you through stress, to test your ability, to challenge. That's when we talk about risk. Because a lot of us, when we go into that, we never did none of this stuff before. We never did it. We stay in our little bubble. How's that becoming, you know, a leader? How's that taking risks? How's that taking, you know, a chance? You got to come out of that bubble. You have to test yourself. You have to challenge yourself. You have to be surrounded by people that challenge you every day. Not just by telling them what to do, but empowering them to be part of that team, right? Then they start challenging you. Then you start thinking. Then you start learning. Then you start growing, and the cycle continues. So to answer your question, I'm still a follower. Leadership just came with me learning, being around people, and taking on the responsibilities of wanting to, you know, make things better. Make things better not only in that military setting, but as a person, as a person individually. Did that answer your question, kind of, sort of? It's just a personal thing. It's not a light that comes on and say, I'm going to be a leader. Some leaders we go through the big debates. Some leaders are born. You know, some leaders have to work at it, right? It's good to have a goal. I want to be in a leadership position, but does that make you a leader? Again, we go back to the film. It's about your character. It's about your presence. It's about all those things. It's nothing that you say that makes you a leader. It's about how and what you do that makes you a leader. Well,
they'll come down to you next.
Okay.
Good morning, Sergeant Major. Good morning, ma'am. I'm Cadet Pacheco from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and both of you having many years of distinguished service and serving with many generations. My question would be, what do you think the biggest challenge this new generation will face, and what advice would you both have on how we can overcome it?
I know we're going to have differences of opinion on this, and you want to go ahead first?
The challenges that the new generation has. You're asking that question to some old school that also had to make a change to understand the new. I think our challenges is still going to be leadership, right, throughout when I say that, because we're getting more, the military totally is getting, well, I would say the Army. Everything I'm going to talk right now is going to be Army. The Army is getting more business-like, and that troubles a lot of people. But even on that slide, it talks about innovation, right? The only way we can get there is to understand our generations have changed. So when I say business-like, it could be a great thing because we continue to move forward in innovation and change with our environment. You see how all that ties together? So I think our biggest challenge is going to be how do the personnel like myself that are still in at my age and the ones that came in, I call it the 2003 syndrome. After 2003, the ones before 2003, most of them are still in. So how do we get them to understand that they must adapt their leadership styles, adapt their leadership abilities, and understand how to grow with the innovation changes that are going on in the military today. That's what I would say our biggest problem going to be. How do we continue to lead by example with those two different generations within the military now?
And I would say leadership is definitely one of the biggest challenges. It's always going to be a challenge because nobody doesn't want to listen anymore. You know? And a big thing is the younger generation are afraid to take risk. Bottom line, they're afraid to take risk. I saw this, you know, coming up with, you know, my soldiers before, you know, I retired. They're scared to take risks. They would rather sit there and have me tell them what to do. Tell them what to do instead of, you know, using their training, using their intuition, using their gut, using what they learn, working with others to solve problems. As a leader, you can't do that. You can't do that. You're the ones that you're the ones up front. Can't be afraid to take risk. You know, whether right, wrong, or indifferent, again, risk is how we innovate, right? We see if something works. We put two chemicals together, it blows up. Oh, we know we're not going to do that anymore, right? But you take that risk. You take that first step. So again, leadership is always one of the biggest things, and the next thing is taking risks and that ownership, that responsibility, taking ownership of it, because, you know, everybody wants to be in charge too. I want to be in charge, I want to be in charge. But at the end of the day, do you want to be responsible? That's where you get people saying, I didn't have nothing to do with that. Guess what? It doesn't matter, because if you're in charge, you can't say, PFC Miles, right? PFC Miles did it. You're the leader. It's not on her. You're supposed to develop her, right? You're supposed to develop her. So taking ownership, taking that risk, and building your leadership attributes and competencies. That's the biggest challenge. And again, you say, how do we fix it? How do you fix it? It's just, what do you value? What is your passion? You know, what do you want the outcome to be? You want a negative outcome? You do negative things, right? You don't invest the time. You don't get to know the people around you. You get a negative outcome. If you want a positive outcome, you do what you need to do, right? You do what you need to do. Put in the time, put in the effort, and positive things will come.
Major. I had a question about leading through your subordinates, because at the school they tell us a lot to lead through your lower rankings, like your first sergeant and all of that. And I was wondering how to do that, because I know that a lot of times it's randomly chosen that we're a leader here and we're giving op orders and we go out in the field and we're supposed to do that. And not a lot of times we utilize the people that are already there, like our squad leaders. So I was wondering how you did that in your time as leaders.
One of the things about leading, you said you're not, you said you're not giving enough, you're not delegating enough, right? Not delegating to other people. That's a leadership challenge. That's the things that you as a leader, when you're giving op orders, it's all on you. How do you delegate? How do you know who to go to delegate those authorities to?
Now, did you say you wasn't given that opportunity, or what?
I just said that I wanted to know, just in case, when it happens, how should I be prepared for that?
Just like I said, you have to know your team. You have to know the strengths and weaknesses of everybody on your team, right? like I said, with on the sports, the basketball thing, the three-point shot, right? 5 people on that team. You're the captain of the team, right? Clutch time. Clutch time. You have somebody you know, hey, could shoot three-pointers really well, right? And then you have somebody that can't shoot a three-pointer real well. And you're down by, you're down by 2, right? You need that three-point shot, right? To win. You need that extra point. How do you do it? By knowing the people who you work with, the people who you serve, right? That's how you know. That's how you get prepared. You observe, you watch, you listen. One of the first things that they didn't show on the movie clip was that Robert the Bruce, he listened to William Wallace. He listened. And then once he listened, he realized, he inspired Robert the Bruce, hey, let's go win this war, right? Let's get our freedom. But you just have to lead them. And if you lead them, he said, they'll follow you. And so will I, right?
Hey, being able to delegate is the key to your.
I said delegate.
So make sure you again understand like she's saying, but make sure you delegate though. Don't try to do everything yourself.
You can't.
And then if somebody else is doing that, if I'm gathering your question correctly, if somebody else is doing that, how do you deal with that? You have to talk to them. You have to let them know. Do that one-on-one. That's how we did it. You do that one-on-one if it's an issue, right? You work out that issue because you're not being a team player if that is happening, okay? And the mission will fail, right? Because everybody not on the same sheet of music. If that's what I gather, what you get to. Okay.
So know your team, delegate, communicate. Cool. Go ahead.
My name is Braden Whitman. I'm from Franklin, Tennessee. I'm a USMA scholar. More for both of you. Have you guys ever experienced imposter syndrome, and how do you deal with that when you feel like over your head?
I experienced that. Look, I'm trying to get my doctorate, and all we talk about is imposter syndrome, right? Yeah, you're going to have people who, they say, fake it till you make it. But the true test is when the crap hits the fan, what does that person do? What does that individual do? That's how you test that imposter syndrome. What does it come down to? You can only fake it till you make it for so long, right? But when you're being tested, when you put yourself under those stressful conditions, it's how do you do, or how do you cope, positively or negatively to that change, to that stressor, to that, to whatever, you're facing. So yeah, you see imposter syndrome until they go out there on the obstacle course and, they can't do the simplest things, yeah. But again, as leaders, you got to recognize that. That's what you got to know about your team. Hey, I got it, ma'am. I got it, Sergeant Major. I got it. Okay. You'll hear that a lot. Okay, let's see. You go out there, go to the field. Hey, set up a tent. I thought you said you knew how to set up a tent. Crickets, Imposter syndrome. We see it all the time because they fake it till they make it. They're afraid to ask those questions, until it's time to actually perform, and then they can't. So yeah, you see it. But it's up as you as leaders to recognize that. It's up to you to keep training and retraining and developing those subordinate leaders. You got anything to add?
Right in the back of others.
He said right in the back.
Right in the back of others.
You can't use all those old terms.
I
They
know.
don't know what the old terms are. Sorry, we're still antiquated in our military jargon, so you're gonna hear some stuff like, what in the heck are they talking about?
Yeah, and what she said is true. You'll notice them right off. You'll notice the people right off, and you'll know how to deal with it.
Just put them to test.
Yep, as a lieutenant, you'll know how to deal with it. You'll see it, then just talk to people, and you figure out how to handle it. The best way to solve any issue, though, is going back to what I told him a few minutes ago, is one-on-one talking and making sure people understand that you see what they do. Okay. And we got about 6 more minutes for question and answer, and then once we break, we'll stand up here. Well, we'll stand down there, and if you have any other question that you didn't want to blare out over the mic, then we'll be right up front. So we got anybody else?
Go ahead. Good morning. My name is Abigail Bassingley. I'm a Coast Guard Academy scholar, and my question is for the major about being an officer. There's always going to be people who don't agree with your decisions or will always complain, and my question is just how you deal with that.
Workplace conflict, you're gonna experience it, right? Because everybody doesn't have the same leadership style. Everybody doesn't think alike. That's just the nature of the beast. We just said, you talk it out. You state the basic intent. What is the intent? What is the goal, right? If it's somebody that's a peer to you, then you should be able to talk to that other peer. They might see eye to eye. They might not. But again, it comes down to, are you communicating the commander's intent, my organization's intent? And if the actions of whatever you and your peer come up with, does it meet that intent? And if it doesn't, it does need a discussion. And then you talk through, you talk through it. You always be professional. You always be professional. You talk through it. You communicate it. And you give your pros, you give your cons, and you go from there. If not, you take it higher. That's why we have a chain of command. Sometimes it can't be delegated. We're like little kids. I want to do it this way. I want to do it that way. Can't. Call mom and dad. Bring them in, and then you get their intent, and then you move out. But you're gonna have it. You're gonna have it all the time because we're just different individuals.
Then we had somebody else that was ready. You got it? Okay.
Morning, ma'am. Morning, Sergeant Major. My name is Cadet Brian Johnson. I'm a state service cadet. My question is for the both of you. In your experience, I know that there's multiple ways to lead. You could be like a drill sergeant and just be like authoritarian, or you could have a more personalized approach. So in your experience, would you say that one is more effective than the other, or maybe you have your own way of doing it? I would just like to hear it.
I didn't quite get the middle. Come down a little bit. Let me see.
Use your command voice.
Well, I don't want you to yell too loud in that microphone.
So my question was, you can either have a more personalized approach to being a leader, like maybe getting to know your followers, or maybe just being more authoritarian.
I'll start off with that. Like I just explained, you have to, one, always be professional, right? You have to lead by example, right? When you talk about personalized, yeah, you can, we have, as leaders, you should have like open door policies. Anybody should be able to come up to you and talk to you, right? That's how you get things done. You want to be approachable, because if you're not approachable, then you're kind of like a toxic leader. If people are scared to approach you, then how can you resolve issues, right? So you want to set up a personalized approach to people be able to come up and talk to you, and to resolve issues, but you also want to keep it professional. And what I mean by that is sometimes people get a little bit comfortable. Again, you're going to be with your peers, and not all you're going to, advance at the same speed, right? My husband and I, we both started off as privates, but he made E6 in 4 years. I made it in 5, right? So he outranked me. Then he made E7 in 7 years, and then I made E6 in what, 6 after that, shortly after that. He still outranked me. So I said, oh, I got something for you. I became an officer, right? I changed my scope. Look, I changed my scope. I changed direction, right? So that didn't have anything with being personal, but the thing is, we still, as a husband and wife team, we understood our roles and responsibilities when we were in, when we were in a public setting. And that's all about knowing your roles and responsibilities and making sure you instill that into your subordinates. Hey, know your roles and responsibilities. You can come up to me anytime, but at the end of the day, I'm still the one in charge.
So my outlook is a little bit different. We talked about it last night, right? There's no, you must build a team that leads to a family aspect, because every one of these personnel in here that served in the military are our family. That's the way we see it. But we cannot break that line to where we're out hanging out together and calling each other by our first name, and then we go back to work. And somebody talked about this last night, right? We go back to work, and now you mad because I had you do something because you thought I was your buddy. That's why I think the line, that's why I stayed away from it. You know, we used to invite certain people to our house for like a barbecue, right? But only certain people came. And that was the reason, because we had to make sure we kept a line, but we still treated that person that didn't come as our family at work. Okay? So you'll figure it out, but don't never get too comfortable, because some people will take advantage of that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
On your feet. All right, time is currently 0857. They will be here. Answer questions. Great.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep.